welcome back everyone, it's me Matt. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are talking about Army Commandos. Now this is one thing I have to safely say I really regret not attempting to complete back in my British Army career, trying to do the Army Commando course. We have to be cautious when we talk about commandos because there's a little bit of confusion. There's two variants of the commando assignment. So you can be a Royal Marines Commando, which is part of the Royal Navy, the specialized shock force that are elite special team of soldiers, well, Marines, that are used now in a more specific basis. And we have the Army Commandos, which are a subsidiary training course you can do, and do portions of the Army version of the Commando course that the Royal Marines do, which is what you're seeing in this footage. So the Army Commandos give you, you know, the dagger, and it's similar to that of the Parachute Regiment doing P Company. You get your wings. Of course, you're not a para or a part of the Parachute Regiment, but you can be attached and a jump qualified. Same for the Commandos, right? You can be attached to a Royal Marines Commando unit. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about a Army Commando unit that attaches to Royal Marines in an artillery standpoint from an observation post or a JTAC configuration, which is, you know, everybody loves the JTAC, calling in fire. And interestingly, I'm actually going to be going in to my own course learning this kind of stuff in the future. Certainly not as a commando raider for sure. Speaking of raids, I'd like to do a massive shout out and thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Yes, I want to take a minute to recognize the game is actually doing very well in the mobile gaming world. I do play it myself, along with 1,900 players that have played every single day since launch, and that's quite a commitment. The game is extremely popular, with over 35.5 billion battles being fought as to this day, and more than 8.5 billion arena battles. I must admit, I do love the game for its stats. I'm a bit of a role-playing kind of guy. I remember the sort of Final Fantasy days, and this game just brings back that nostalgia. I love the factions you have and the champions you can capitalize against, defeating some of the gnarliest bosses you can imagine. And the game keeps growing and developing and exploring new things all the time, and this month Raid's got a jam-packed schedule of events to kick off for the summer, as well as a load of new content. And as always, they've got a bunch of brand new champions coming out, and every single one of them looks absolutely badass. And as I said, I really do enjoy working with the champions against some of the bigger bosses. I mean, just look at some of these guys. There's also a really cool new rotation on the Doom Tower, which I definitely want to try and finish this month because I've been playing in the background for quite some time. And I'm going to try my best to summon some of these new champions that they're releasing to get me to the top of the Doom Tower. If you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you have to do is hit the link in the description box or scan my QR code on screen right now, and you'll get an epic hero, Chonuru, who's amazing in the Doom Tower by the way, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get into the game. All this treasure will be waiting for you here, and it's that easy. Download the game, check the link in the description, and hopefully I'll see you in game. Have fun. So let's get back to talking about the Army Commandos and how they support the Royal Marines Commandos in an artillery function. We're going to do a bit of an overview reaction to a video that they released for 29 Commando, which is the specific commando unit from the Army that supports integrally to the Royal Marines with close air support, artillery fire support, and basic JTAC configurations where they actually call for fire. And this is really interesting to me because I myself am going to be going very shortly on a course with the Canadian Armed Forces to become an observation post member and potentially a second-in-command observation post member to take control of an OP or observation post, which is really cool, and it's something I've really wanted to do for a long time, so I'm kind of excited, which is why I'm also excited to review this video from 29 Commando. So the video is from the British Army's own website. Really cool. They've made a very cool sort of, I guess, aura of being a JTAC or being a forward observer. So let's take a look at it.
Commando exists to deliver joint fires and targeting. This means integrating the delivery of guns, mortars, rockets, naval gunfire support, close air support, attack helicopter, and increasingly an array of novel and electronic weapons that allow us to enhance the lethality and the survivability of the commando force.
So this is really cool. You know, being a British Army ex-serving, I had a lot of respect for Army Commandos. They did the extra mile that most, you know, standardized grunts aren't going to do, getting attached to some of the most elite forces in the world, alongside those who did P Company. As I said, I wish I'd been able to commit to those kind of courses. Being a vehicle mechanic myself, I didn't have a huge amount of opportunity to go to a commando unit working with tanks, so it wasn't really on the forefront of what I wanted to do, but something I wish I should have done. I kind of regret not trying at least to do it. That's not saying I would have passed or failed, it's just something I would like to try. But what's really interesting about 2-9 Commando is that they're specifically relatable to providing fire support for the commando force, getting as much firepower available at the fingertips and the eyes and the ears of a commando force going into an engagement. And when we talk about specialized forces like commandos, they are on their own. Okay, they're literally going behind enemy lines. They don't have the commodity of like tanks rolling across to support them, or warriors filled with back platoons of infantry. It's just not going to happen. They're on their own. They may need to pull at any moment's notice a huge amount of firepower on the enemy, and they don't have time to mess around, coordinating between different units to get that firepower. They need to be able to do it on the spot with the unit they're with in small tactical teams, which is how the Royal Marines Commandos restructured very heavily in the last couple of years because of budgetary restraints and just reorganization of the commando force. So they really are trying to go for more tactile, close-knit teams that are specialized, more focused on actually engaging enemies within grasp of the sea. And that's primarily what a Marine Commando is there for. They're there to engage from the sea and naval operations primarily, and that's where they're going towards more now. And this really is sort of a game changer when it comes to firepower and fire support. We're getting army units that are attached from an artillery standpoint to provide that lethality and survivability, like this officer said.
Okay, mission. Purple 33's mission, this is ours. 148 Battery are to find prestige weapon systems in the western region of Strathclyde, to understand their capabilities, disposition and intentions, to provide raiding options for 2-4 including terminal guidance, and to set the conditions for a high Mars strike. Find suitable HLS in the vicinity of November X-ray 7346 to support a raid, allowing USMC partners to establish teams on the ground.
So before going any further, massive shout out to James Clark who produced this video. It's very well made, very professional, and I'll give credit to the original video in the description box. What I find interesting about this particular showcasing of this unit is the integration between almost like a joint task force operation. We've got actual Royal Marines, Army Commandos, US Marine Corps, and those assets all working together to create a very tactile, dedicated force, as I said before, that can put a huge amount of firepower down behind enemy lines in a very, I guess, I would say scary situation. You've got small teams that can do a lot of damage, but at the same instance, it doesn't take much to be captured in that configuration. And small little raid units like this, if you're captured, it's not going to go well for you.
I'm a Royal Marines Commando Sergeant at 2-9 Commando. I'm a Joint Terminal Attack Controller JTAC, and we provide close air support to the 3 Commando Brigade.
So again, making this very clear, there's different variants of commandos. Obviously, this gentleman is a Royal Marine Commando of 2-9 Commando, and different assets are attached to 2-9. What you're about to see from the British Army, different batteries of artillery units that are attached, but this is a dedicated JTAC for Marine Commandos. I don't think you can get much cooler of a job, probably in the Commando force, than, say, a JTAC. Being able to actually pull in huge amounts of firepower from the air, sea, or ground, it is pretty impressive. And, look at the dude. He looks badass in the rig he's set up in. Totally different to what the old, Royal Marines Commandos that we're used to seeing with the LAD-5s. Back in my time when I operated with the Royal Marines Commandos in Afghanistan, they were in the back of my vehicles. Soundest bunch of guys, amazing dudes. They certainly didn't look anything like this, right? So the Commando force, you can see, has changed wholeheartedly, and the JTACs are a very, very important asset to any battle group, especially in a configuration like I said. So this person has a lot of skills. They've done a ton of training. It's probably one of the most difficult courses you can do in the armed forces, is becoming a JTAC. It's not as simple like you see in the video games, just getting on the radio and calling someone in. There's so much to consider. Something that I'm terrified about, just going on a simple observation post course with the artillery in the Canadian Army Reserves for myself. This guy's on a next level. Okay, the amount of information that he has to disseminate and process in creating fire missions and calling in for close air support is insane. It's absolutely insane. So massive shout out and respect to this Marine.
I'm in the Royal Artillery 148 Battery, and my role is to direct fires, artillery or naval gunfire onto a target.
So this now is an actual Army Commando, part of the British Army, not part of the Royal Navy in the Royal Marines, but he's done his Commando course to allow him to serve alongside Royal Marines Commandos. A normal Royal Artillery soldier would not be allowed to be attached to a unit like 29 Commando without having that course, because there's a lot of physical restraints that you're going to have, robustness, technical training that you're going to need to work alongside commandos with their weapon handling skills, firearms, etc. So it's a different world. You know, you're not part of the standard operating, I guess, artillery units that would be operating in the British Army, say with like AS-90 or L118 artillery light guns. This individual is literally a forward observation officer or forward observation soldier who is being able to pull in fire support and fire missions from artillery from whatever assets that may be available in the area. In this instance, they're actually pulling them from the US Marine Corps from the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system, which is really cool. Again, having the skills to negotiate between certain different assets around you, whether it be local forces or friendly forces, is a skill that it takes time to get used to. Each military has their own way of doing things. Luckily in the artillery we have a quite similar form of fire discipline. That's why we call it fire discipline, to allow us to put rounds on target in safe and fast, effective methods. But there can still be language barriers, right? In this situation, it's US Marine Corps, but you could be working alongside the French or the Germans or whoever else, right? And if you're part of a forward observation crew or a JTAC configuration, you have to be very good at your communication skills, and quickly too, because if you do not pull in that firepower quickly, people are going to die. So again, huge respect to this Army Commando as well in getting involved in this particular kind of operation.
I'm a Royal Navy weapons engineer, leading engineer technician. My role within 29 Commando is 148 Battery, small boats coxswain and outboard motor maintainer.
So now we've got a sailor from the Royal Navy, okay? A boats coxswain, he's an outboard motor maintainer, an engineer, lead engineer for the crews that are operating in a naval configuration. Remember, Marines are going back to their roots, working at sea, working in naval combat, and they need sometimes those who are actually able to operate and maintain heavy-duty equipment like the rib boats or the heavy landing craft that these Marines are going to be operating on. So it's massive team synergy. You can't take a boat out and just have a trained Marine to know how the machine works, how the boat works, how sailing works. It's not as simple as just jumping in a boat and sailing away, right? There's a lot of things to consider, and that's why specialist Royal Navy soldiers, or sailors I guess, are being put in these crews in 29 Commando. They are elite portions of the Royal Navy that have skills and skill sets that allow ships and boats to be used effectively so that the Marines can do their job. The Army Commandos attached to those Marines can do their job, and as you can see, they're working as a tight-knit team, going in on the boats, on the ribs, to do what they need to do as a very small, specialized unit. One thing I always love about these videos is, you know, they try and go for that really intensive, you know, hardcore look and feel of this raid. It looks awesome. And in the background is just a little transit van with its headlights on driving by, and they got glow sticks on their heads. I mean, we got to be clearly quite obvious that they can't do everything in the special operations sort of standpoint, because you're not going to be able to see much. And the night vision, I think it loses its effect. I love this sort of sunset closing, you know, the ships are going out to combat. And maybe they're not quite in the tactical sense yet, but I always love seeing something like that. Little, you know, there's a van in the background. Hello, boys. Could see you on the lake perfectly there. It's just really cool.
So with the future Commando force, in many ways, we're returning to our DNA of being commandos from the sea. So raiding, assaulting, or demonstrating to put small teams behind enemy lines to cause havoc, to create cognitive paralysis of our adversary.
We have many different methods of insertion. So we've got para, onto land or into sea, helo casting, fast roping, submarine RV, our organic small boats teams, jackal, OSRV, or ultimately by foot.
So these boys clearly have just about every form of insertion capability you could think of, specifically for the sea. I mean, when we talk about Special Boat Service and SBS, we're on the tip of the borderline of doing that, right? I mean, this is tier 1 being sort of SBS/SAS style operations. Below that would probably be where we're at right now with 29 Commando and Royal Marines Commandos. They're doing specialized taskings like this. These boys aren't messing around. I mean, you see in these pictures and the footage, they're blackening out most of their faces, trying to keep that aura of, like, secrecy. Clearly, and you can still kind of see this dude, and he's got a badass beard, which most Royal Navy folks do, especially this guy, because he's operating with a bunch of hardcore Special Forces dudes from the Marines. But it just goes to show, there's a huge application across every spectrum of the armed forces, whether it be Army, Navy, and potentially even Air Force, right? There is Air Force specialities, especially in the British Army, where you can be attached similar to that of a JTAC, but in an Air Force role. I don't know what that looks like, how that works. Of course, the Air Force aren't really going to pertain to it being attached to a naval situation too much. But, don't be disheartened by joining a particular branch of the military because you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to join the Special Forces, so I'll just go for the Army, right? It doesn't quite work like that. And the benefit of being in the UK is you do have the Royal Marines at your doorstep. Here in Canada, we don't have a specialised force like the Marines. We do have Special Forces that can be attached from the Army, but we don't have a subsidiary force that's attached from the Royal Navy like the Marines in the UK. So this is really cool, though, that they have so many functionalities and they can do just about anything at sea, land, or air. That setup looks awful to walk in. Big old boots on, big waterproofs. They're coming onto sand. I bet that's just gnarly to be walking on with that much equipment on. And I'm sure, doing that for long periods of time, and if you have to go on patrol like that, would suck.
So within 29 Commando, you've got a plethora of tri-service personalities. So we've got Navy coxswains and medics, and then from the Army side of things, we've got the artillery guys and artillery JTACs. Within the air cell, we've got the RAF Reg manning the Brigade TAC-P.
And there we go, we got the trifecta almost, right? Army, Navy, Air Force, and obviously Marines within the Navy. But, even the Royal Air Force with the the Royal Air Force Regiment, which get a lot of stick in the British Armed Forces world. Even they're involved with this, with the JTACs and calling in a fire. So, specialised units are in every branch of the military at some point. If you want to achieve and aspire to get there, it's feasible, it can happen.
And then we've got about 20 Royal Marines JTACs. As a small footprint in a strike team, having one JTAC in that team with the disposal of F-35 from 617 Squadron, you'll be able to have multiple effects with multiple teams at the same time.
So the role of 148 Battery is to find, understand and strike high value targets. A typical mission for us would be to insert covertly, be that by boat or parachute, find the target, understand that target and be able to gather as much target information to be able to carry out a strike.
Now, I'm going to be doing nothing near, not even close to the levels of observation post skills these gentlemen are doing in this sitting, because it's just on next level kind of stuff, right? This is real hardcore observation, ISTAR, trying to get as much information as you can, calling in direct fire, calling in air support, all this sort of stuff. Something that I aspire to one day maybe do, nowhere near in the configuration they're having with this Special Forces setup. But I would love to get at least exposed to this kind of environment and meet these people and understand, how they operate, how they work, because it's really fascinating to me how two soldiers in a little trench can cause a whole host of damage to an entire battle group of tanks, infantry, armoured infantry, an airfield, a base. It doesn't take much because of the assets that are available around them. And you know, an F-35 is only as good as the targeting that's been given. If it flies into the wrong area or into an area where, you know, it's been given a ton of anti-aircraft and, you know, SAMs, OPs allow us to see them before they go in and say, hey, we may need a more precision strike from an artillery unit prior to the jets going in to knock out those assets. That's something that the OPs are doing, and the forward observers and the JTACs. They're the ones working alongside the infantry and other specialised units like the Royal Marines to find those things. So 2 people can do more damage than, say, a battle group worth of tanks just from a little bit of technology and the human eye. It's really, really cool.
The Fleet Battle Problem allows us to operate alongside our US Marine Corps Force Recon partners to penetrate covertly an A2AD bubble and then cross-queue strikes from a USMC HIMARS to temporarily blind the enemy defensive system and thus allow the mass of others to get into the fight.
29 Commando have a very close working relationship with the US Marine Corps, in particular the Marine Artillery Regiments, who provide support with M777s and the HIMARS, which is a mobile artillery rocket system, which has enabled our observers to deploy and gather enough target information to be able to call in a strike using the HIMARS, and then move on to further taskings and lead in a team from the US Marine Corps to carry out a direct action.
Now more than ever, our commandos need to be highly skilled. They need to have the ability to seamlessly integrate sophisticated technology. They need to be agile in thought, and they need to be able to adapt to any situation. By design, we will operate at greater range, in small teams, often in highly contested environments. We'll employ various covert insertion methods, offering choice to the commander.
It's safe to say you probably don't want to get into a fight with this gentleman. To be an RSM part of the Royal Marines Commando, you've clearly done a lot of things right. That's the highest level of rank you're going to be getting in the commando world, and you know, he clearly has a ton of experience behind him. Massive respect to him. He terrifies me just looking at the dude. He could probably squish me in between 2 fingers. But he has some valid points, right? They're trying to get the commando force to use their brains, be agile, be tactile in their decisions, and figure things out on their own, so that when it comes to going to this more specialized force, they're not relying upon, you know, large-scale platoons of troops. The small 4 or 5 man teams that are doing these kind of operations, they've got to figure it out on themselves. They've got to be really agile in what they're doing. So if shit hits the fan, they have everything available to them in their training, their skills, and their mindset. Because one of the big things about the Royal Marines Commandos is it's a mindset, right? They say it's in the mind, right? Only 99.9% need not apply, all that good stuff. And that's what they need. They need robust brains as well as robust bodies. And it's really cool that they're advocating for that, because in the past you heard a lot more about Marines just being tough because they were physically strong. Now they're looking at saying, you know what, yeah, you're strong, but you're going to need some brain on you too, because we're going to be using new technologies, new stuff that will require some common sense and some capacity to use your brain so that we can actually kill the enemy with more sophisticated methods of engagement.
Our people are our greatest asset, and it's the commando mindset that instills the commando confidence to enable us to get after this today and tomorrow.
So that's it for today, folks. I hope you learned something about 29 Commando and the massive amount of firepower they can bring down, and the specialization that they have is really, really impressive, and something that I would love to aspire to be, but unfortunately probably never ever going to be the case. So big respect to all commandos out there. If you did enjoy today's video, please click that little bell by the subscribe button so you can be notified of any upcoming content. And if you want to support my channel on Patreon, PayPal, or become a member, please go in the description box below and you'll find all the links for not only that, but also, of course, Raid Shadow Legends, which I really do wish to continue playing in the background for myself, and I would encourage you to do also. Also, I hope you have a wonderful day. All the best. Take care.